Okay, so we have another edition of Mental Health Mondays, and this week we're going to focus on growth goals. So, looking at what growth goals are and what the benefits are to our mental health on setting daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and even yearly goals. And we'll break down a really easy system on how to set really good goals, because that's a big part, is really just the actual goal setting process and then the benefits that are going to come with that. But before we get into the goal setting, I'll do a quick review from last week when we talked about sleep hygiene. So obviously you can go back and watch that video. But we talked about finding your sleep number. So basically, what's that number? How many hours of sleep do you need on a nightly basis to feel recharged? And then once you know what you need on a nightly basis, times that by 7, find out your weekly sleep quota. Then you have a good number, a tangible number to go with, and you could say, hey, you know what? I'm not getting nearly as much sleep as I should be, or I'm right on point, or I need to dial things in a little bit more. Then we went through some steps on screen time. First one, no screens before bed. We know this. I know it's hard to practice sometimes, but eliminating screens before bed. Creating a bedtime ritual is really important. Think back when we were kids, or if we're parents and we have kids, we put them through a ritual every night. Snack, get your jammies on, brush your teeth, read a book, go to bed. We need to be doing the same thing. Our body likes consistency and predictability. Our brain, rather, likes consistency and predictability. And if we figure out a ritual and we maintain that for a month or so, we're going to start to notice that we're falling asleep easier, we're staying asleep longer, and we're more rested in the morning. Let's make sure our bedroom is a sacred space. 2 things for a bedroom: sleep and romance. Outside of that, if you have a office in your room and you're having a hard time sleeping, consider taking that out. And any other things that could be distracting you or impeding on you getting a restful sleep. Final one is sleep journaling. So there's lots of stuff. You can just type in Google sleep journaling, sleep diaries, data tracking, and so on. Lots of great things out there you can print off and track some of your routine and rituals and start to kind of quantify what your sleep routine looks like and where you need to dial some things in. And you can do that obviously for free. And once again, if you do feel like this stuff is out of your control or it's way out of whack, obviously reaching out to a professional, a mental health therapist, social worker, psychologist is not a bad idea as well. They're professionally trained and they can help you dial some things in. So that's our check-in from last week. This week, we're looking at goal setting, and I like this quote. An idle mind is the devil's playground. And I know that's true for myself. When I have too much free time on my hands, I find that I get very demotivated. My mood kind of drops. Energy kind of bottoms out as well. I like that there's a fine line. I like to be just busy enough that I have things on my plate, but not too busy and overwhelmed. So I think during this COVID-19 pandemic, I think this quote can probably ring true for a lot of us. There can be a little bit more idle time, and maybe not even idle time, but just a lot different. If we're working from home, it's different time than when we were working in our offices and so on. So goal setting is going to help get at that idle mind and keep things and get some actions in place. So why goal setting? It gives you something to work towards. That's important. And this is, once again, it is important during COVID-19 times. It's also important not before COVID-19 pandemic hit. So goal setting is really something that's really good for our mental health at the best of times, probably a little bit more important now. Gives you something to work towards. It keeps you motivated. We know there's research out there. The individuals that really started the research behind this goal setting is they show that by setting goals, it actually keeps you motivated. Motivation's a big thing, right? When you're motivated, you feel good, and you're more productive. Your mood's likely better. It keeps you focused and on task, which I know myself. I struggle a little bit now that my schedule is not as structured where I'm working from home. So goals kind of help me dial in my tasks, and it keeps me on track a little bit better. when you achieve that goal, even if it's a small daily goal, it feels good. We get a little dose of that feel-good chemical, right? We put a little bit of work in, which is good. You got to pay to play. But when you get that achievement, it feels good, and then that's what we want. It increases grit and perseverance. It makes us gritty. People that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's what gritty people are. They're gritty. They keep going. They persevere. And goal setting can help you develop some of those attributes or really amplify those attributes. So when we're looking at goal setting, SMART goals, and you may or may not have heard, if you're in the education world, you've very likely heard tell of SMART goals, the acronym. If you're not familiar with SMART goals, it's really a system that breaks down how to set a goal, and it sets you up for success. So using the acronym SMART, we need to make sure our goal is specific. We need to make sure it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant and realistic to you, and it's time-based. So we don't want vague goals. And we're going to look at next a poor example of a goal, and we'll break down where it didn't meet many of these 5 criteria: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So this poor example of a goal, the goal is, I will exercise. That's not specific, right? You're not even indicating what type of exercise you will do. It's just, I will exercise, right? It's a very vague goal. So we need to dial that in a little bit more and get it much more specific. It's hard to measure because we don't really know what we're going to measure. How many days a week are you going to exercise? For how long are you going to exercise? What type of exercises are you going to do? Because it's not specific, it makes it harder to measure. So it fails the specific test, the measurement test. It may be attainable, which that one it might get a check mark for. But it's still pretty foggy what we're looking to attain or achieve. It's probably relevant. So if this individual set a goal for I will exercise, they probably want to get physically fit or to exercise more. So it gets a check mark there. And then it does not meet the time-based criteria. There's no finish line. How long are you going to exercise for? Is it for one day? Is it for 30 minutes? Is it for a week? Is it for the next month? So there's really no finish line. So it's not specific, really hard to measure. It may be attainable, but it's really foggy what exactly it's looking to attain. It's probably relevant and realistic. So it gets a check mark for that one. But it's not. There's no time-based piece to that. So now let's take that goal that wasn't written or laid out very well, and let's look at making that a little bit better. So let's look at a good example of a goal. I will run 3 times per week for at least 30 minutes each workout session. So you're going to run 3 times a week, and each time it's going to be for at least 30 minutes. That's a specific goal. You're indicating how many times, what exercise, and how long for each duration. We can measure that. We can say, yes, I ran for 30 minutes 3 times a week, so that 90 minutes per week. It looks attainable, so this is really subjective. It has to be the person that's setting the goal. Is running 3 times a week realistic for this individual? We're going to assume so. If you're just getting into running, probably 3 times a week is realistic for 30 minutes. If you're a veteran runner, maybe this is actually the bar is too low. It looks relevant and realistic. Once again, that's subjective. Is it relevant to the person? If you hate running, it's not relevant, realistic. We're going to assume this person wants to run, and so on. And is it time-based? Yes, the goal needs to be met by the end of the week. That's when we check in to see have we achieved or not achieved the goal. So hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer there on how to make your goals specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based. So really just writing the goals themselves is a really important part of the process, and then you're setting yourself up for success. So this next slide, we're going to look at there's kind of 3 different lenses we can look at goal setting. We can look at from a macro, really kind of backed up wide lens, a meso kind of in the middle, and then a micro. In other words, setting a yearly goal, that'd be kind of that macro goal that you want to achieve. So if we're going back to that person who's setting the running goal, maybe their yearly goal is to run a half marathon by the end of the year. or in the next 12 months. Then what they do is, okay, so take your big goal, your macro goal, then you're going to break it down into more smaller, intermediate goals. So you're going to set a monthly goal. I'm going to run 90 minutes a week, every week for the first month. So that's your monthly goal, which really is part of your weekly goal. I'm going to run 30 minutes 3 times a week. And then your daily goal, depending, this in particular person, there's only a daily goal for 3 times a week. But depending what you want, there's benefits in going macro to micro. I think that setting daily goals is important. And in a lot of the stuff that for my own personal goal setting is I set to-do lists. And that's kind of my daily goal setting or my weekly goal setting. But just looking at from big to little, if you do want to set a yearly goal, for sure break it down into chunks as well. Instead of just saying, hey, I want to run a half marathon at the end of the year, but I'm not really, and then you say, that's my goal, and not looking at setting monthly or weekly goals. You're not setting yourself as much up for success. Which I just referred to, to-do lists, really important. I think they're really important to keep us motivated. I'm a big believer in to-do lists. There's lots of stuff out there. There's bullet point to-do lists, I think they're called. You can YouTube lots of different things. I'm just a traditional old school, write things down in a notebook, and I rewrite them every Monday, the starting of the work week, and cross out what I achieved the week before. And it does. It feels good when you cross out and you achieve that goal or you got that thing done in your to-do list. And they don't have to be extravagant things. They could be simple things, but it does keep you motivated when you put it down on a to-do list and you get into this habit. Once again, give yourself a good month. If you haven't had a habit of doing this, give yourself a month to get into this habit. So to-do lists, really important in this goal setting, keeping ourselves motivated. And then, so some further reading. Carol Dweck, she's kind of the guru behind mindset. So the growth mindset. Angela Duckworth, she's done a lot of work in grit, so that passion and perseverance. And I put further reading / viewing because if you just type that into YouTube, I know Angela Duckworth has TED Talks. I'm assuming that Carol Dweck does as well. So if you're more of a visual learner, you want to watch something and shorter versions, lots of stuff out there to learn a little bit more about goal setting and mindset, growth mindset and grit and so on. And that tops it up for this week's Mental Health Monday. And next week's topic is going to be screen time and mental health. So stay positive, stay safe, and we'll tune in next week. Have a good week.